All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most critical and honestly coolest parts of the modern mainframe, the ZOS Workload Manager, or as we all call it, WLM. You ever stop and wonder how a single system can juggle literally millions of different things at once without ever dropping the ball? Well, WLM is the secret sauce. It's the brains of the operation, and we're about to see exactly how it works. So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about the huge traffic problem that WLM was built to solve. Then, we'll get into its really unique philosophy, managing by goals, not just priorities. After that, we'll crack open the WLM rulebook and look at the two main levers it pulls, goals and importance. And finally, we'll see it all come together with some real performance data. Okay, so first things first, let's set the scene. I want you to picture a massive mainframe sysplex. That's just a fancy word for a bunch of mainframes all working together like one giant computer. Now, at any given second, you've got thousands, maybe millions of different tasks all fighting for the same resources: CPU time, memory, access to storage, everything. And that is the million-dollar question, right? It's like a huge digital city at rush hour. You've got your critical online banking transactions that absolutely have to be instant. Then you've got these enormous overnight batch jobs churning through millions of records. And on top of that, you have all the essential system tasks that just keep the lights on. They all want resources, and they all want them right now. So who gets to go first? How do you keep it all from grinding to a halt? This is where WLM steps in. But, and this is important, it is so much more than just a simple traffic cop waving things through. It's an incredibly sophisticated manager that makes every single decision based on one thing and one thing only: achieving your business objectives. To really get what makes WLM so special, you have to understand this huge shift in thinking. See, the old way of doing things was to assign static, technical priorities. Job A is always priority 5, job B is priority 10. That's it. WLM just throws that whole idea out the window. Instead, you tell it what your business needs. You say things like, hey, my critical online banking transactions, they have to respond in under half a second, 95% of the time. WLM's entire reason for being is to then orchestrate all the system's resources to make sure that goal is met. So how do you tell WLM about these all-important goals? You do it through something called a service definition. The best way to think about this is as the master rulebook for the entire system. It's where you translate your business requirements, fast transactions, batch done by 6 a.m., into a language the system can actually understand and act on. The real magic here is that WLM lets you manage your multi-million-dollar IT assets using the language of your business, not the language of the machine. So, let's go ahead and crack open that rulebook. Inside, we're going to find the core building blocks that WLM uses to organize, classify, and manage every single piece of work that zips through the system. At the very heart of WLM, you have two kinds of classes. First is the service class. This is for managing. Think of it as a bucket where you put work that has similar performance needs and the same level of business importance. This is where you actually set your goals. Then you have the report class. This is purely for measuring. It lets you get super detailed performance data on specific kinds of work, usually inside of a bigger service class. Manage versus measure. It's a really simple distinction, but it is absolutely vital. Now, this looks a little complex, but the idea is actually pretty simple. Over on the left, you see all the different kinds of work flooding into the system. You've got online transactions from CICS, database queries from DB2, you name it. WLM acts like a sorting hat. It looks at each piece of work as it comes in, and using a set of classification rules you define, it automatically puts it into the correct service class you see there in the middle. It's all about getting the right work into the right bucket. And this visual just perfectly shows how it's all organized. It's a very clear hierarchy. At the very top, you have your overall policy, which is the whole set of rules. That policy is broken down into workloads, which are really just high-level groups for reporting. Then, inside those workloads, you have your service classes. That's where the real management happens. And finally, for that super fine-grained detail, you can have report classes nestled inside the service classes. So, just to lock this in your brain, a workload might be something really broad like online or batch. A service class inside of that online workload could be critical 6 transactions, and a report class inside of that might be payment transactions. This structure gives you this incredible power to both manage and report on system performance with exactly the right level of detail. Okay, so we've sorted all our work into these service classes. Now for the big question. How does WLM decide which class gets resources when things get busy? Well, it uses two main levers, something called importance and the type of performance goal you assign. Let's look at this pyramid. Importance is just a simple ranking from 1 to 5. 1 is the most critical. This tells WLM how vital it is for that work to meet its goal. So if an importance 1 job starts missing its target, WLM will literally steal resources away from an importance 3 or importance 4 job to help it out. It's a ruthless pecking order. Right at the top, you have the system work, which is non-negotiable, and way down at the bottom is discretionary stuff that only runs when the system has absolutely nothing better to do. Now, picking the right kind of goal for the right kind of work is absolutely crucial. As you can see, for that fast, interactive stuff, you use a response time goal. But for longer-running jobs like batch, that doesn't make sense. So for those, you use a velocity goal. A velocity of 30, for instance, is just you telling WLM, look, whenever this job is ready to run, I want it to be actively using the processor at least 30% of that time. And of course, for anything that's not time critical, you just label it as discretionary. All right, enough theory. Let's see how this whole structure, workloads, service classes, report classes, comes together to give us incredible, actionable insight into what is actually happening on our system. We always start at the top. This chart is showing us CPU usage, but broken down by workload. This gives you that great high-level 30,000-foot view of your business day. You can clearly see that big blue block of batch work running overnight, and then, right on schedule, the green online work ramps up and takes over during the day. But now, we drill down a level to the service classes. This view is much, much closer to what WLM is actually looking at from moment to moment. Each of those different colored bands represents a different service class, each with its own specific goal and importance level. This is where real performance analysis begins. And for the deepest dive, we use report classes. This chart shows us the specific jobs or transactions that are running inside a single service class. So if you see a big, weird spike in one of your service classes, a report class view like this can tell you exactly which job is the culprit. It gives you incredible diagnostic power. And you have to remember, this isn't some set it and forget it tool. As this quote says, WM is constantly monitoring the system. It's always checking, is the work meeting its goals? If not, it adapts on the fly, shifting resources around dynamically to make sure your most important business promises are being kept. So when you boil it all down, WLM isn't just a technical tool for managing resources. No way. It's a strategic component that aligns your entire mainframe, this massive, powerful, multi-million-dollar asset, directly with the goals of your business. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Is your infrastructure really, truly aligned with your business strategy?